joining us. I'm reading a little as we go, pardon my pause. Thank you for joining us. Let's pause one moment. Are you okay? It looks like someone's trying to present, and so we would ask you to please not present right now. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. And thank you for your great questions. We are going to cover a lot of ground today. We've got so many good questions, and we know that more are coming in that chat box. And an hour is not going to be enough, but that's why you're going to watch the YouTube channel. If you want to revisit other, more information, you can certainly please continue to read the emails that Superintendent Gunning sends you thoroughly. We just updated our website. There's a lot of good information there. So lots of ways to reach us and get more information, but we're going to dive in today and get as much done as we can in this hour. Your job today is to keep all those good questions coming. Even if we can't touch on them today, it helps for us to understand what you want to know and what we should be talking about in future communication. So please get them in the chat box and we will do our best, but we're saving all of that data to support future communication as well. That way we can ensure that we're meeting the needs of our community, our families, our staff, everyone involved. So thank you for that. You can also email our COVID account. Now we heard that this wasn't working, but I want to tell you it definitely is because it had 1,600 emails within about 4 days. So that email address is alive and well. And if you had a delay in getting back to your email, it's because it has been flooded. And we are working to get to all of those. But clearly you were replied to because you're on this line. So that's a positive step in the right direction. So thank you very much for that. Please email any follow-up questions to that COVID account. And we can start from there with further communication. This is a very popular event. We had 400 responses in the first 40 minutes. And so lots of folks still on a waiting list, and we are working to work through all of that, trying to get every single person on the wait list into a meeting. So that's still in progress. Friendly reminder, please mute yourself on this call to avoid distraction, and we won't try and share. If you've got something to say, please put it through our chat box and then we can address those things. Let's pause right here, see if there's any questions about that. Yep, I think it looks pretty good for now. Thank you. Okay, at Litchfield Elementary School District, we use something called Conscious Discipline. That's our social emotional learning tool. It's our framework for helping kids feel safe and connected so they can access their brilliance at school. There are a lot of rituals associated with conscious discipline, and we're going to do a couple today because this is what our teachers always do in our classrooms, and this is how we start all of our staff meetings and our administrative meetings. So one thing we do is wish wells. We think about someone who needs a little extra support, someone that we care about and we want to send them our best wishes. So today, as our group, we're going to wish well for Representative Joanne Osborne. She's our Legislative District 13 representative, former city council member with the city of Goodyear, and she has tested COVID positive, and we are wishing her well right now. We're going to put her in our hearts and send her our best thoughts. We're also wishing well to all of you and your families and the stakeholders in our community who are struggling right now during a tough time. So in honor of anyone who might not be well right now, or who are just kind of having a rough time getting through this challenging COVID era, we are wishing you and your family well right now. We're going to put those people in our hearts, take a big deep breath, and send them our very best thoughts. Thank you. That's our wish well ritual. Thank you for sharing that with us. If you have anyone that you would like to wish well, please put that in the chat box and wish them well also. Another ritual that we do with conscious discipline is our celebrations. We know how important it is to pause and celebrate all of the good things that are happening in our school families. And so today we're going to celebrate the Hot Community Foundation. This is Helping Others Thrive, and they have donated 1,000 masks to our staff, over 1,000 actually, so that when we return to in-person learning, our staff members can return with greater safety. So thank you to the Hot Community Foundation for those masks. We're also celebrating our brand new website, and we're gonna have a chance to peek at that in just one moment. Those are a few of our celebrations. If you have anything that you would like to celebrate, please add it in the chat box. We'd love to celebrate with you. That's one of our rituals with conscious discipline. So now let's move on with our town hall. A couple of introductions. The star of our show is Superintendent Gunning. She'll have a chance to introduce herself a little later on. We also have some guest experts with us this morning. Thank you to our Director of Special Education, Melissa Mccomb. She's on the line and she's going to take the mic later to talk specifically about special education in the COVID era. We also have our lead district nurse, Rebecca Shear. Nurse Becca is a registered nurse for 18 years. She's out at Verado Middle School, and she's served in a variety of healthcare settings, including hospital setting, in-home health, nurse training. So she's our in-house expert, and she's on the line to support us at the end of our conversation when we get to the agenda where we discuss health and safety. So thank you to Nurse Becca for joining us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and jump into a screen share. We will dive right into this content. Miss Anna Torres, it looks like you have a presenting feature that's turned on right now. Could you please close your presenting feature? Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. I want to introduce you to our brand new website. And we're going to review a couple of items, please. So check this out if you haven't already had an opportunity. Here, can you see that? Okay, here's our brand new website. Voila, we're so proud of this. Lots of bright, fun photos. In the top right corner, you're going to find our COVID section. This is our dance floor for today's conversation. Click on COVID. You're going to see that we've got a ton of new updates over here. So some of the really important ones to discuss today are our recently updated learning models, minor revisions, and we'll also touch on our health and safety measures today. So for now, I'm going to click into our learning models. You've probably seen this before. We've sent it to you already. The only real change here, other than the some simple links, is the transportation piece. We removed that because it was a little bit confusing. Superintendent Gunning is going to speak about transportation later on to make sure we have a lot of clarity. But we have 3 learning models for Litchfield Elementary School District in the 2021 school year. We've got our in-person learning model, that's kinder through 8, 5 days a week, regular school hours. Keep in mind, Wigwam Creek Middle School has new school hours this week. So pay attention to that if you're a Jaguar, and this will resume when in-person learning resumes. Of course, school starts on August 5, but that's all distance learning. Every student will be on distance learning. This model is our in-person model to resume when it's deemed healthy and safe for students and staff to return to campuses. This is our brand new program, our Digital Learning Academy. We're very proud of this. It's guaranteed and viable curriculum that's approved and designed by our Litchfield staff. So we don't have TradAcad in this system. We are certain of that, but it's a high quality program with a lot of social emotional learning and great for families who want to keep their kiddos home online full time. The hybrid model is also K-8, 5 days a week. That's got children in the classroom 2 days a week, and then that same cohort is at home 3 days a week. Not every school will have this. It's not guaranteed, at least, at every single school and every single grade. We will have to find out where parents are placing their students through their commitments and then we will know more about what that staffing looks like. But we do know that we are offering it from our district, and that was a stretch to get to this learning model. That's our A-rated district going above and beyond to try and create choices for our families. So we're really pleased with the hybrid learning model. This is a sample schedule. It's a little unusual, so check that out, please. Melissa Mccomb will speak later about specifics of special ed. And Superintendent Gunning will talk more about traditional academy. I know we've got a lot of questions there. And as a reminder, here's our email if you want some follow-up information. I'm going to close this, take us back to our homepage. And remember, this is our dance floor, the COVID section of our homepage. You bring that down. Let's peek now at our health and safety measures. Couple of things I want to highlight here. You can read this on your own time, so please do that thoroughly. It's about 5 pages long. And I'll just mention that this is one section of our school reopening plan, which is more like 20 or 30 pages long. So this is a really important piece where we've got a lot of questions. We want to focus on health and safety today. And a couple of things here that are going to jump out at us are face coverings. Yes, face coverings will be required when we return to school. That can be a mask or a face shield. Doesn't have to be both. And staff and students will be wearing those. Of course, you're going to see a lot of information in this document about cleaning, sanitizing, bathrooms, buses, classrooms, lunchrooms, all of that. A lot of details here for you to peek at. There is some information in this vehicle section, encouraging families to stay with their student at the bus stop until the student gets on the bus with the student transporter. We think that will encourage students to wear face masks or face coverings and to social distance. Parents can keep student in the car with them, just encourages more safety. There's also some commentary in here about if a student looks like they could not be feeling well that morning, some of the protocol that our student transporter will follow, meaning make sure that student has a face mask and helping to keep that student isolated on the bus until they can get into the school nurse. We never ever leave a student at the bus stop, no matter what their condition. They would always stay with the student transporter or go home with parents. Okay, we're going to buzz down here. Definitely field trips. Those are all canceled until further notice. And more information here about face coverings. When physical distancing is possible, face coverings would not be mandatory. So we are building time into our schedule to help give kids some room to spread their wings and get some fresh air and remove those face coverings. So that's part of the schedules that are being developed by each school. They're not finalized yet. Schools will be finalizing those at their own sites. Superintendent Gunning will cover more of that. Of course, when we get into food services, lots of health and safety measures. A new thing at school is we're teaching kids to not share. We don't share food. We don't share school supplies. We don't share our crayons or our carrots. So that's something you can be doing at home to help your student prepare for when in-person learning is safe, to make sure that they know they shouldn't be sharing. They should know how to put their face mask on their own. Things like that are things you can do now to help them prepare for school when they get back into a classroom. There's information here about health screenings, more information about cleaning and disinfecting and sanitizing. We're talking about cohorts, which is basically your child's class, keeping our cohorts together and keeping them separate from other cohorts. And a lot of folks are wondering if they're going to be able to volunteer or visit right off the bat. And the answer is no. We are trying to keep school campuses as safe and simple as possible. And so no on-site volunteerism for a while, but please look up your local parent organization because your PTA and PTO will have a lot of opportunities for you to get involved, probably virtually. So that's the end of that presentation. I'm going to stop that, get back here with you. Thank you. And let's hear from the star of our show. We've got Superintendent Gunning here, ready to give you a nice warm welcome.
Okay, Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for attending today. We are so excited to have you. And I know that this time has definitely been a difficult time for all of our families and our staff as we try to navigate the landscape that's ever changing. I know that some folks, if you've been diligent and been watching the board meetings and reading all of the information, there may not be a lot of new information here today. We have been trying to keep you up to date with the information that we have when we have it, so that you are definitely aware of anything and everything that is going on in the moment that we know it. I am just so grateful to be here. Been with the district for over 18 years. This is going into my 4th year as superintendent. And my kids, both of my girls attended the Litchfield School District. They're grown women now. One is in the Navy and one is actually in veterinary school in her 3rd year. So she'll soon be a vet. So super excited about that. My little one, due to the COVID, I haven't seen her since boot camp, and she'll be traveling soon without seeing her mom to Japan. So I'm really sad about that, but it's just all those things that we're kind of having to do during this time that are difficult. We have lots of celebrations with everything that we've accomplished. We've had over 100 staff members and leaders and stakeholders, community stakeholders, be a part of the planning sessions throughout the entire summer. And we have a lot still working to work through all of the details that I know a lot of families and a lot of employees are wanting, and they're still working hard to get all of those. So the things that we'll share today are probably pretty high level because we're still digging into the details on all of the different pieces, especially the staffing piece, because I know a lot of folks want to know about TA and they want to know about honors, but we're just digging into that deeply and seeing what our interests of our staff are and what the interests of our families are to see if we can make those operationally aligned. So more answers coming soon on that. The other thing that I just wanted to share is just thank you for your patience and your flexibility as we go through this time. We continue to see the COVID rates rise, which is very concerning. And we want to reassure you that we'll definitely be continuing to look at that. We know we cannot open our doors if it's not safe. So we just have to ensure that. So we're constantly monitoring, and we're also partnering with our Maricopa County Department of Health to offer insight and get their expertise as we travel through this time as well. So thank you again for your patience, and thank you for being here this morning. And I hope that we'll be able to answer some of your questions.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Gunning. Just to give you all an overview, we're going to start with special education. Then we will move into learning models, and we will finish with health and safety. So if you have some questions specific to those categories, it would be helpful if you could enter them at the time that we're discussing them. I just don't want to lose a lot of what you're typing. So if you know your category is coming up, maybe hang on to that. But we are also tracking what you've already written. So let's introduce Melissa Mccomb. She's our Director of Special Education. She has a master's degree. She's our expert in social emotional learning. She is a board certified behavior analyst, which is really the best of the best when it gets into social emotional learning. So we are so proud and grateful to have her with us. Melissa, could you please just take a couple of minutes and give us an overview of special ed right now?
Thank you, Shelley. Good morning. I'm Melissa Mccomb, the Director of Special Education. Can you give me a thumbs up? You can hear me? Yes. All right. Thank you. So just a little bit of background. I won't take too much of your time so I can get to questions. We've been doing a lot of planning. Some things we have answers to, some things we'll be working on as we get student enrollment. In our full model, our full 5-day return, we would hope to provide all services as we typically have in the past and get students all services on the IEP. In the hybrid model, we would plan to work with families to get as many services as possible within scheduling and flexibility, and also prioritizing how students specifically learn and where their biggest deficits are. Understanding that it may be more important to have core instruction in person, or it may be more important to have that direct special education teaching in person, and this will depend on the student. In digital, the LESD Academy would review the IEP and determine if FAPE, a free and appropriate public education, can be offered in that setting. and may make some small changes to the IEP in order to accommodate that. If it's determined that that would not be appropriate, but the parent is requesting a virtual model, then this would be provided separate from the academy, but would also still be provided, and that would be in conjunction and working with either the child's teacher or with another teacher that may be assigned to that caseload, depending again on enrollment. We're also looking at increased measures for our medically fragile students. We have students in an actual class that have very severe medical needs, but also students across the district who have other medical needs that may need just an increased limited number of people in and out, things like that we're working on. Increased of use of face masks in addition to face shields and having those available. Also looking at foot traffic in and out of classrooms. How we'll do inclusion and peer support. Inclusion will still be an opportunity for our students, but we're going to be asking for parents to let us know what they're hoping for so that it does expose students to more children. But however, they do have a right to their typical peers and to be in that general education setting if that's in their IEP. And so we have an obligation to still follow that. And so we'll be talking again with families. And the name of the game is going to be communication and working with families to see what works best, but also having that flexibility and understanding that we do have to work within the scheduling of, caseloads and student and what our teachers are, working to provide. Hopefully that gives you some background, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I did see a couple questions come in already. Amy Enlow, I saw that you asked about masks for the deaf and hard of hearing students. I am following the Arizona Commission for the Deaf, Hard, and Hearing, and they are soon putting those out to be available upon request. So as soon as we see those come available, we will be requesting those for students who need them. We also have our speech therapists and provide them for our deaf and hard of hearing teachers as well, that they can do the face masks so that there can be some, see-through and be able to see their faces as well. So we know that is important in both of those areas. Also, I had a question about developmental preschool screenings. So last year when buildings were closed, everything for screenings and evaluations had to be put on hold for face-to-face. This summer, we were able to catch up on most of our evaluations that we had put on hold for preschool evaluations to get ready to hold our next round of screening. And as soon as the building's open and it's safe to be there, then we will begin to hold these again. There's a chance that if buildings stay open, but we're not, but children out there, that we could still do that. So we're just going to be looking at what are the expectations and guidelines that are put out, and then we'll move forward as quickly as we can. And there was a lag with questions coming in yesterday. So if the questions come in and we don't see them right away for some reason, we will get to them. But I'm going to look right now and see if I see any other questions.
Melissa, can you just clarify for me, please? So if I have a student on an IEP, should I be reaching out to you, or can I expect that you will reach out to me?
Teachers and case managers will be reaching out to families. So as we get closer to the start of school, after we have our enrollment, and then we can do a little bit more planning, then they'll begin reaching out to talk with families and look at how each model will work. And I do see a question from Candy that says if IEPs will be done remotely, and yes, we will continue to have meetings all virtually. This will decrease foot traffic, also allow those specialists who are outside of each individual school not to be going into all these different schools to support in meetings, but to continue with that virtual option. And we were able to work out, how the signatures work and all of those things in the spring. So we'll continue with those measures. Just looking to see if I see. So Ms. Serino, as far as continuing until school starts, previous to August 17th or whenever that time comes, we will be continuing from in the spring, however, stepping up those measures to provide direct services based on the child's IEP. So last year we were providing services directly in correspondence with areas of the IEP where students had those needs. And this year in the fall will actually be the services will be provided directly based on each child's individual student needs. And again, not every service will be minute for minute because of scheduling and making sure we can get as much as we can for every student, but we're going to provide as much as we can, and it will be increased from the spring by far. Instruction online for cross-GAT ASD questions from Ms. Turner, or sorry, ASD Classrooms, so autism spectrum disorder. So we are looking at platforms to kind of fill the gap that exists between, kind of our academic platforms that focus on grade level academics, and looking at the more functional, like how to work with our students who need more reinforcement, more prompting, have different academic needs. So we're looking for something to fill that gap right now. We've explored a couple of them and are determining what will be appropriate in order to make sure that we can meet that need. And so we are looking into a online interface that would help us to continue to up the ante, so to speak, with those classrooms. And we'll get that out as soon as we've made a decision based on what's available in funding.
Thank you, Melissa. We've got a question here about 504s. Are you doing a brand new one for this year, or just catching up from where you left off in the spring?
So 504s are accommodation plans, and those are handled through the principals and assistant principals. And so the same thing is that they should be looking at those accommodations and how they can be provided online while we're online, and then in person when we're in person. And it may not be that every single accommodation can be provided, but they should make every effort to provide what we're able to in order to help students access that curriculum.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much. We have a lot to cover this morning. We're going to give Superintendent Gunning a chance to chime in here, and we're probably going to have to push to our next section. Please keep these questions coming in the chat box so that we can capture them and keep communicating well. Superintendent Gunning, would you like to support any of these comments?
I just want to thank Melissa for her team for their outstanding work, and she had a whole team of teachers as well in helping to design the plans in meeting the needs of all of our children in all of these different models. So you guys have done an outstanding job. And of course, being the stellar program that folks move from all over the nation to attend our district because of the outstanding care and services that we provide. So thank you, and keep those questions coming. Even if you email your questions in later, we'll get those to the right person, because a lot of times you might have a very specific question that's related specifically to your child, and we can get that to the right person to answer that for you.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to move on and discuss some learning models here. We have a lot of questions. Superintendent Gunning, if you could give a brief overview of a lot of the questions you've already received, and we know a bunch focuses on traditional academy and honors, and some of the specifics of like what would a regular classroom, a day in the classroom or a day online look like?
Perfect. Well, as you've probably seen in our previous surveys, we had 3 different models. We have the 5-day in-person model, we have the hybrid model, as well as the online model. Those models were derived and came out of the ADE roadmap. And we weren't sure exactly what that would look like and if there would be interest in those. So we surveyed our parents to see, and there was high interest in all 3 areas. Then what we had to do was to survey our staff to see if we were able to operationally meet those 3 models. And our staff was pretty much balanced, just almost exactly like our community, with the 3 models as well. What we are in right now is the phase of taking that initial survey data and trying to see with also the staff and parent survey data to see if we can make that match. So we're in that process now. You'll be receiving later today an email with a commitment form to kind of finalize that commitment of which learning option you might be interested in. And knowing that if for some reason, if we end up extending the distance learning time, let's say, for example, I know there was a question in there because there's a lot of districts that have already extended that to October. So if by chance we did do that, we would also check back in with you to confirm at a later date as it got closer to which learning model you would be looking at. The 5-day in-person, That matches the governor's initial executive order, where we have to if we're back in the buildings, we have to have a 5-day option to provide a safe place for children to attend. So that's what that model supports. The hybrid option is for a family and or a staff member who kind of wants to have a smaller group. So for example, if I have a classroom of 30 children, 15 would attend on A day and 15 would attend on B day, and then I would support their learning at home on the other days. So just kind of to let you know that. And then the online model, we were looking at families to really commit for a longer period of time, thinking like 6 months to a year, like that was your design and that was your thought for this year, kind of jumping in. Now, just so you know, on all of those models, we will allow movement at intervals if space allows. We need to be able to plan and to prepare, but we want to be able to have that flexibility because there is something that could come up that you might need to change your idea on that, or your decision on that. The second executive order that came through from Governor Ducey stated that we had to keep our buildings closed until August 17th. So we will all start on distance learning. I know it's so confusing as we kind of jump into all of this, but we will all begin on distance learning. Now, with us beginning our online program, we'll actually, that Digital Learning Academy, we're going to take that structure, and that's what we'll train all of our teachers on, so that in the distance learning timeframe, there will be structure to their day. We must take attendance daily, so we have to do that. We also need to have grades. So students will be required to turn in assignments so that teachers may grade those. So we're working on kind of what those expectations look like on a daily basis. Of course, the youngers have less time online, right, than the olders, because their attention span's a lot shorter, and with some breakup pieces. There'll be times that your teacher is live, and there'll be times that it could be a recorded lesson as well, as we kind of work through all of the details. So we have a team and a committee that's working through the details of this, but definitely having more of a structure, because it's very important as we jump into this year and our teachers are ready and willing. They want to make sure that they keep the academics strong for our children. There were questions in regards to like benchmark and assessments. There probably will be some assessments that I'm sure the teachers will be doing online, but we will do benchmark assessments when we return to being in the building, if that makes sense. So we have our benchmark assessments, and we'll do those once we're back in returning into the building, and then we'll coordinate those assessments with our online students as well. Kinder screenings at this time, we are postponing those until we get either closer, or until we are kind of back in the building and we can do those as a team. So we are delaying those screenings at this time. In regards to TA and honors, the principals are working right now to kind of look at all of their schedules. Of course, we would love to be able to offer honors in our middle school, and we would love to be able to support TA in our elementary. I just don't know the answer right now, because I'm not really sure with the staff and the needs of all of the kids if we'll be able to balance that. I will tell you that they're trying and they're seeing if it will work, but we're not really sure. Another question had come out from yesterday about TA and honor spots. So if it's a little discombobulated this year or this quarter or this semester, will you lose your spot? No, of course. We'll just return you all back to your spots once we're able to go back to our typical day and our typical life in a school. So please don't worry about that. Now, I wouldn't be able to save your spot if you did leave the district and then came back. But if you are still here and still with us in whichever model that we have, we would definitely support you in your return on that. Let's see, I'm trying to look to see.
Can I help you?
Let's talk about a little bit about the Digital Learning Academy. We had questions about, do they affiliate with a homeschool? They will affiliate with a homeschool. I cannot guarantee that it would be your homeschool at this time, but you will be connected to an actual school. And we had a beautiful question yesterday that somebody thought of that I would not have thought of, but I have it flagged because it's so important, is also connecting, just thinking through that, like yearbook. and pictures and all of those things. So we'll definitely make sure that they're connected to a campus, that they're a part of a yearbook, and that they have their school and class pictures as well. So that's super important.
Could they do sports?
Sports right now, yes. So there's two things with sports. One, sports are postponed until we can ensure the safety that we can house those and do them. But yes, if you are, like, let's just say now we're getting back to normal, kids are back in buildings, but you're an online child, you would then be able to participate in the sports of your home, middle school, if you're a middle schooler, or anything along those lines. So you'd be connected just like any homeschool student is in our district currently. Lots of questions about recess. So with your online class, with your 5-day in-person class and your hybrid class, you're cohorted. So with your 5-day in-person, you're cohorted with that group. You would go out on the playground with that group, and we are not mixing cohorts. So you would never mix with a hybrid cohort. You would never mix with another 5-day cohort. We have an actual committee that's working on schedules and kind of working with the different campuses so that they can have their very specific systematic schedule for a recess. There was a question about face masks at recess. It will depend on exactly what the recess activity looks like. You know, it is unsafe if you have children running systematically and they're using face coverings. That's not advised. But we also have to make sure that they're staying socially distanced. So it'd probably be more structured play. We will also rotate through the playground structures. So it would be just that cohort that would be on that playground structure. After that cohort left, the playground structure will be sprayed down and disinfected in between. We want to make sure that children have some outside time and activity during this time, and we cannot wait till the weather gets a little bit better so that it's even more of an opportunity for them to be outdoors. Technology is another big component. In the first survey, we asked if you were in need of technology. And so those folks, we have your names on a list. They're at the campuses, and the campuses will be reaching out to you to pick up the technology. They're planning on probably the week before school starts that you would be able to stop by and pick up the technology you need. If you had not filled that out and you are still in need of technology, please feel free to reach out to your school directly. You can email your principal and let them know what your need is. And based on student need, we will provide technology for you and ideas for low-cost internet if internet is something that you're needing.
Will the students have Google accounts?
The students will have, that's a good question. I'm not really positive on the Google accounts and exactly how that works, but they will be a part of the Google Hangout within their classroom. So they usually have access, they have an account that they can access Google Docs and all of those different pieces. I just don't think it contains like an email. There were questions in regards to transportation. Transportation will be provided if you're a typical bus rider. So if you're a 5-day in-person typical bus rider, definitely there'll be transportation. If you're a hybrid student at your campus, if that hybrid model is at your campus, then transportation will be provided. What we're working on right now is because we're not sure if we would have a hybrid at every single campus, then we're not sure exactly what transportation might look like. So for example, if I only have 5 students in 2nd grade at Dreaming Summit who are interested in hybrid, I can't provide that because that's not enough students for a teacher. So those 5 students, if they really wanted hybrid, might have the option to go to, let's say, Barbara Roby. Let's say if Barbara Roby had space in their hybrid model, they could go there. So that's where we're not really positive on the transportation. We still have to work through. But class sizes, I know that's really important. We have the class size adjustment or modification, which is a little bit more than our standard for online, but our hybrid and our 5-day in-person will be typical class size in those models.
Thank you. Superintendent Gunning, can you please clarify the difference between distance learning that begins on August 5 and the digital learning academy, which is our new learning model starting this year?
So when you think of those two, how I think of them is I think of Digital Learning Academy as an ongoing, like if I was a parent and I wanted online schooling for my child, I didn't want to return to a brick and mortar. I wanted to do everything online. That will be the main difference. And while we were working through all of these commitments and working through the staffing is because we would like people to have their teacher for the year. So we want the folks who are choosing online to have their online teacher, and that will be their teacher for the remainder of the year. We are using components, though, of the Digital Learning Academy structures in the distance learning so that we can improve that structure and provide more. Our teachers did an amazing job of like turning around in like seemed like a blink of an eye, which it was, to try to go from a brick and mortar, which they were so used to and comfortable with and really good at, to then providing distance learning, and kind of all of us trying to scurry around to make sure we had all of the resources. What we've done now is we've pulled a lot of the resources so that it'll be readily available at their fingertips. It'll be very consistent throughout the district, and they will get comfortable with this, because unfortunately we have to prepare for our future. So if, and we hope to be back in a building at some point, there could be a potential that a building would have to close if there was an outbreak, or a classroom would have to close, or a grade level would have to close, and that teacher would then have to move to distance learning. So we want to make sure that they're really comfortable with those resources, that they can use a lot of those resources in their typical day, in their typical classroom, as well as if they're doing distance learning. So hopefully that was helpful.
It's very helpful. Some similar questions are about parent training. How will we help parents support children with online learning? And what about teachers in that factor? Can you talk about their options for remote learning or remote teaching?
So what we're working through right now is we're definitely designing the training for our teachers and staff. There'll be 5 days of training for them prior to the year starting. We will be working on supports for parents too. It's just so much during this time, and we're just kind of really trying to move as fast as we can. And this week our principals did return. In response to the remote learning question for our teachers, right now we have asked for teachers to return to the building, to work from the building when the school year starts. We did, however, have teachers, if they have special needs or special circumstances, they're reaching out to their principal as well as to our HR department to share those requests and to share their private needs. We've gotten really good here at the district office, support services, technology, food services, all of the different departments that have been working all summer. Luckily, our buildings have multiple entrances. It's been kind of sad because we've definitely not seen each other as much as we typically do. We use the phone a lot. We don't travel across into somebody's office. We utilize our face masks when we're in the hallways or for high frequency areas. Those will be things that will be, supporting our teachers so that they feel safe in their classroom because they can easily socially distance from others in those situations.
Okay, we need to move on to but this is obviously an important topic of learning models. Tons of questions still coming in. And can you just step back for a moment, Superintendent? Let's say I'm a mom, I'm feeling a little frustrated. I think I'm not getting enough answers right now. We're hearing that schools are going to contact me. And when can I expect that to happen? When can I expect more information? How do I get more? Because I need to make a choice about what my student's doing next year. What is your response to that type of concern?
So I think if you have very specific questions, then I would let us know so that we can have your principal reach out to you directly and have that phone conversation. Because I think it's so difficult right now. I'm talking at such a higher level of trying to include everybody from kindergarten through 8th grade with all the different dynamics. So I may not know your specific situation or the specific question that you're needing answered so that you can select your model that you're looking for. So if you would like, and we've already had some parents definitely reach out, we can have your principal contact you directly and kind of talk through, and answer the questions that we have. I know it's difficult because it is an ongoing process, but as you can imagine, we've got to work through the staffing so that we know exactly what that staffing looks like. School hours will remain the same, so there's no change there. So every school will have the same hours. And then we're also just working what the typical procedures would look like also during the school day as well. Once we know the staffing pieces, we'll probably have more answers on that TA and honors and what that would look like. But I can't guarantee any of that when I don't know based on the number of kids and how they will fit into each of the models with the number of teachers that we have.
Thank you for offering your aerial perspective. A couple of follow-ups to that. Can you speak to the CARES money that we received? How are we spending that CARES money, which is federal funding to support schools right now? And let's launch with that.
Okay. The CARES money that we received from the federal government, which was right around $750,000 is kind of the estimate. We were spending most of it on PPE so that we have extra masks on hand, extra face shields on hand, some plastic plexiglass dividers, cleaning supplies, the hand sanitizers for the classrooms, as well as all of the committee work. We've been paying all of our employees for the committee work that they've been doing this summer as well. So that's been really important to be able to support those pieces in preparation for the opening of the school. We also had set aside some of that CARES money so that when we're back into a typical year that we could also pay staff to provide tutoring in the future for students who may need extra support and extra assistance. So that's kind of where we are right now with the CARES money.
Thank you. And also a high level question. We're in a national teacher shortage, a statewide teacher shortage, and we know that absences occur during the school year. So what are we thinking right now about guest teachers and guest student transporters?
So with guest teachers, we're working with ESI, which is our the organization that we work with, and we're asking for 10 of the sub teachers to come to our training, so that they're trained in that 5 days with our teachers, so that we have them trained and available to work. So we're working hand in hand with them to coordinate that so that we can have our guest teachers prepared and ready to help support our teachers in the need. There with student transporters, they are almost fully staffed again. We were so excited last year. We were fully staffed all year, and they are finalizing their staffing, and they'll just support just like they typically do. A lot of times they might do a second run, or they have their extra folks in the office that go out and actually run bus routes as well. But we were very fortunate that we had very low turnover in transportation this year. So it will be a great start to the beginning of the school year.
Thank you. That's another celebration that we've got too. We should have added that to the top of the list. 90% teacher retention rate, which is just phenomenal, and 100% administrative retention rate, which is also phenomenal. So really great things still happening here at Litchfield School District. Thank you so much for all those wonderful questions. Please keep them coming. We sent out we updated our website with new FAQs, frequently asked questions, but now we've got a bunch more to address. So thank you. We'll send another updated FAQ later this week. One is going to come today. That's what you are already seeing on our website. And then a couple of days, we'll send another one, and we're going to hit a bunch of these that you're asking this morning. So thank you so much. And we do need to move on in the interest of time. We really want to hear from Nurse Becca and Superintendent Gunning about health and safety measures. And some of the biggie questions right out of the gate, if you could please, Superintendent Gunning, give us a little bit of an overview and emphasize what's happening in the lunchroom and what's happening with thermometers.
Okay, so as a part of that PPE and support for every campus, we also, every campus and every actual site and building has no-touch thermometers, as well as we're receiving additional starter kits from the Maricopa County Department of Health for all of our school nurses, so that they have a starter kit. In addition to that, for our nurses, we will also have gowns available too. So they'll have additional PPE for them in their setting. We will be asking students, of course, to wear face coverings. There was a question before, I'm not sure if it was in this session or the last session, but what happens when a child does not wear their face covering? Then we'll be working with the parent and working with you to work through that and to see if really the in-person model is the best choice for the child. But hopefully it would be something that's really minor or that we could accommodate with some other, especially if they had a health condition, maybe with a face shield. Working through the lunchroom, those types of things, of course, what that structure looks like, keeping socially distanced, spreading children out, and what they'll be doing is really working through where the children will eat. They will not be in a typical setting like the typical lunchroom. So it might be that they're spread out throughout the gym. They'll be with their cohort only, or they could be eating in the classroom. So we'll be working through all of those specific details. And a lot of those details also are different by campus because the campus structures are a little bit different. There were a lot of questions too about would I be notified if there was a child or an adult who tested positive with COVID? Absolutely. Our school nurses work hand in hand with the Maricopa County Department of Health, and we would notify if your child or if you were a staff member, if you were exposed to COVID, and we would give you a specific direction on what the next steps would be, because based on that exposure would be what the next steps were. So kind of like I shared previously, it could be that there is a quarantine and maybe that classroom shuts down for a period of time. It could be a grade level where the grade level shuts down for a period of time, or if it was to a level that was even greater, it could be a whole school that would shut down. So we're just, we're prepared, and we would work hand in hand with the Department of Health, and they would guide us in exactly which things we would need to do if that should take place.
Thank you. We do have our resident expert on the line. Nurse Becca is with us. Could you weigh in on this subject? What is your role in health and safety for students?
Hi, yes. Good morning to everybody. I've been on a planning committee during the summer involving a couple principals and a couple nurses in the district. We've been going over guidelines. We've been developing protocol. I've been working directly with our Maricopa County lead nurse who's been guiding as well. We are starting trainings that have already started with our nurses that will continue just to go before school even begins. And we're just going through everything, thoroughly, focusing on the safety of the kids, obviously. So.
Very good. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the excellent training you're offering our nurses. We really, really appreciate your expertise. Can you speak more about the plexiglass? What did you mean by that? Where will plexiglass be located?
So what we're working on right now is having some plexiglass in the front offices towards set up so there's that distance, as well as we do have some campuses that they only have tables set up in there. So we're working on trying to see exactly, figuring out the numbers, right? And to see if we can socially distance based on our numbers, but having those available so that there could be plexiglass dividers set up in between students for the table setting. There was a great question. I was so, Matt, thank you for asking us about like sanitation and those types of materials and stuff, because it has, as you can imagine, supplies have been kind of short and tight in some areas for sure. But we've been getting, we have a COVID warehouse. I would have never thought I would have something like that, but a COVID warehouse where we're having all of our supplies so that our schools and campuses can order directly from there. We're also providing the disinfectant to all, so teachers have it. Everybody will have disinfectant cleaners readily available at their fingertips so that they can clean so that they feel comfortable in their own setting. So like for the front office, being able to clean in between as a parent would come in or leave, those types of things, or even as staff members kind of come and go. So, but thank you, Matt, for reaching out, because definitely in the beginning of the summer, I was really worried, but the supplies are definitely flowing in now. So we were able to get a lot.
Thank you. I'm reading through these comments, and really the vast majority are on the learning model segment. I think we should switch back to that. If you want to hear more about health and safety, please throw that in there. We're going to try and get a few more minutes out of this conversation. But I think we want to clarify something very important. School starts in 3 weeks. How are we unclear about staffing right now? Can you help parents understand how that works?
Okay, so I think there was also a question in the mix of that in relation to like TA. If you had a TA last year, why can't you have TA this year? Well, here's the complexity of this. So what we had to do was, one, we had to see what parents were interested in, and then we had to see if operationally we could support that with teachers. So surveying teachers to see what they would be interested and willing to teach. So now we're trying to marry the two. So teachers are selecting different models the same way you're selecting different models based on your situation for your child and the safety of your child. So that's where it gets complex. So I could have a teacher who may only be able to do online based on their situation. So that adds a different complexity of when you have an in-person, a hybrid, and then online. Now, online, we said from the very beginning that will not offer TA or honors, but those online teachers will be trained to differentiate and push kids ahead, and children will have lots of opportunities to push ahead and go above and beyond. So for in-person and our hybrid, we have to just see who can support which model to be able to determine of what, if TA or honors could be supported in that. So I know that's hard. So I think as a parent, you have to look back to what will best fit the need of the safety of my child. Do I want in person for 5 days, regardless if it's TA or not? Do I want a hybrid, regardless if it's TA or not, or honors? Or do I really want online? And that's what will work for my family. So I think those are the kind of the root base that you have to go back to. We have 12,000 students and over 700 teachers. And so trying to get through the staffing, it takes a lot of time and a lot of hours to try to match all the pieces up. So it is complex, and I apologize. I wish it was a lot easier, and it would be easier because we would already have your classes set up if we were back to a typical school year. But with this complexity, it is definitely difficult.
Mm-hmm. Also complex is the first day of school for in-person learning. We're getting a lot of follow-up questions about exact dates. When exactly will I hear from my principal? When exactly will I hear about my plans as a teacher? If I'm an employee here, when exactly will I be hearing more information?
Okay, so we're working through the staffing right now, and a lot of the principals are reaching out to their teachers. So if you're a staff member, they're reaching out and kind of talking to you about where they are with the information that they have right now. We're working through the commitments, so we're hoping all of our families will submit their commitments by this Friday, so that we'll have those hard numbers so that we can really iron out in the beginning of next week of what that looks like, so that teachers can and principals can finalize those plans. Also, within that, we're kind of working through the needs of our staff, which those are coming in directly. So we're also plugging that information in as well. In relation to the parents and the students, we will get you that information, which a lot of times it's usually on open house, a lot of times when you know exactly who your teacher is. But unless otherwise notified, we'll figure out how we'll notify you on which model. But I would say unless otherwise notified, we'll probably be able to meet your need within your model. Because if we weren't able to, our principals and front office staffs from their schools will reach out to you directly to see or talk through the models that are available. So that's kind of where we're at right now. August 5th is the start date for distance learning. Right now, the tentative in building was August 17th. As of this date, did that answer? Okay. hopefully.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We're just after 9:02. Thank you for all of that clarification and for the high-level questions that we're seeing. We did get a really good question for the health and wellness portion of our talk. So if we can circle back to that, I'm going to just read it directly because I want to make sure that we get it right. And then Superintendent Gunning will give you a chance for some closing remarks. Wow, you guys, there's so many good questions here. Here we go. Can you please clarify a little more specifically about what will happen if there's COVID positive in a class or on a campus? We know a lot of times symptoms aren't obvious from the start. Will that person be required to take a test? Are they required to quarantine? When would they be allowed to return to a classroom? And let's also emphasize anonymity.
So the Maricopa County Department of Health has very systematic guidelines on if someone is exposed or is diagnosed with COVID. So we would just follow those directly. So if there was an exposure for a class from somebody who is tested positive, if it was a staff member, there's a certain route. They work directly through our Human Resources Department, step by step on what steps they need to take for that. And what the Maricopa County Department of Health says is that it is a 10-day process. If you test positive, and you can return upon the 11th day as long as you're not showing any signs or symptoms. If you are showing signs and symptoms, you cannot return to work until after 3 days of no signs or symptoms. So it's very systematic, and our staff would work directly through our Human Resources Department, and that would be handled from that. And then the same token, though, is that our nurses would work directly with a student if a student was tested positive for COVID, and walk them through exactly what does that look like. And then we would also work through our nurse's office too for a whole classroom if we had to close down a classroom or close down a grade level, so that we would have direct communication, so you would know exactly how long and what that time frame would be, and then what the expectations were before and prior to the school reopening or that grade level or that class reopening. So it's pretty systematic with that.
Thank you for that. Nurse Becca, do you have any closing comments or supplementary work for that?
No, just we will be training the nurses on how to report, and there is going to be something set up where we will be able to keep track of how many positives there are, and if there's a positive, in specific areas, we can kind of keep track of any variations there. So we have things in the works going to get all that organized and set up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're way over on time. So Superintendent Gunning, could you close for us, please?
Well, I just want to thank you all for being here, and thank you all for all of the questions. And I know a lot of you even said, please have my principal reach out to me, and we will definitely coordinate that. And then we'll try to get as many answers back to you as possible. Preschool, you will definitely receive additional information. I know that's a big question on here. So preschool is a little bit separate and a little bit different. So we'll get more information to you as we know more with our preschool setting, and for typical preschool when it can return to in person. So working through those. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your flexibility. And thank you for all of your questions. And have an amazing day. And I hope you stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Bye.